This episode of the Seventh Valkyrie Podcast is brought to you entirely by fan support. To help keep the series ad-free, get early access and bonus features, browse gear and apparel, join the community, or watch the series come to life in living color, you can check out the links in the description. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Seventh Valkyrie Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Sharp, and according to a friend of mine who I just spoke with on the phone, I'm currently giving off fun cokehead energy, so you guys get that for today. This is kind of going to be a partner to Soul 7. I've been thinking a lot, just in general, about how to get the most out of life. You know, I'm doing a lot of things right now that I'm really passionate about, and we all are to different degrees. If you're currently working on a 9-to-5 grind, maybe not so much. If you're, living your dreams and fantasies out even more so than I am, then great. But for a lot of people, we're all kind of in that weird space of we're a little bit happy. We've got stuff that we like doing, but we kind of wish we could get more done in the day. And I was really looking at that. I've got a unique position of I really don't have that much schedule, and I don't have that much. I've got 3 meetings a week, and the rest of it is just sort of free time to write for various projects, be productive and run things. And, so it's very unstructured. And so I have a luxury that a lot of people don't have of getting to kind of examine my day and see, and test things out and kind of move things around and see what fits, how the best optimization goes. And I thought that I would share them with you guys. Because again, we don't have so many hours. We only have so many hours in the day. And I actually, for a while, tried to learn how I could sleep less so I would have more hours in the day. But I kind of gave up on that. And I was like, okay, cool, that one doesn't work. How can you be more effective during the time that you are productive? And then I kind of worked on my health and how, it's like, oh, okay, it's cool, exercise and eating right and figuring out the right cadence for when to eat and how to stay healthy. That was kind of second. And then even once I was getting optimized off of that, I realized, oh shit, there's still just only so many hours in the day, and I felt like I wanted to do more. So I actually started doing, as this podcast title, or that's the title of this particular episode, is called, I started cleaning out the gunk. And it's something, and that's why I kind of brought it down to, I thought it was a nice companion to the Soul 7 episode I put out, because, Soul 7 was about finding the things in every single day that you need to do to feel like you've really fully lived. And for me, the companion to that is cutting out the things during the day that you really don't feel like you need, and being willing to kind of take that axe. Oh, it's got a storm coming here. Ooh, it's productivity. Ooh, rumble, rumble, rumble. But yeah, so I started looking at stuff that I could cut out. And for me, the first answer that I found was screen time while the sun is up. So that means social media, YouTube, video games. I cut them all out while the sun is up. And at first everyone was like, oh, so what, you're waiting for the rain to come so you can play video games? No, while the sun is up. So, which is easier in Costa Rica because it's just 6 to 6 every day. It's like no social media, no video games, no YouTube, no kind of Garbo TV. It can be so compelling and so fun, and it can hook your brain and go, don't you want to continue? But at the end of it, I end up feeling empty. And I think a lot of us do. Brene Brown, who I quote all the flippin' time, calls them shadow comforts. They kind of fill some immediate need. Jeepers creepers! That was in my house. I don't know why I decided to record this episode during a thunderstorm. But I'm already halfway through, so we might as well keep going and hope that more rain doesn't come. It's not even raining, it's just thundering. Anyway, so Brene calls those shadow comforts. Brene is also that was Brene. She was like, thanks for quoting me. Anyway, thanks, Brene, for your knowledge. But these comforts like social media, video games, YouTube, to bring it all the way back around, they're satisfying and they fill time and they're easy, but they're they leave you empty at the end of it. They're not things that at the end of the day you go, oh, I'm so glad I did that. That was so awesome. Like that YouTube fail compilation I watched was like just what I needed to feel proud about this Tuesday. You know, they have their place. Like they absolutely have their place. Like I love doing junk screen time at the end of the day. You know, and for me, that's exactly why it was sort of simple. It was like, once the sun is down, there are less things to do. I have less energy. It's the end of the day. I've already worked out. You know, and so then I get to enjoy all of my YouTube and screen time and social media and video games. You know, and I was like, oh shit. Like I realized as I was doing this, because I tried this out for a couple of weeks, I was like, oh, all of a sudden, like then I appreciate those little comforts more because they're just kind of like cozy, fun things to do at the end of the day that are kind of your treat or your dessert mentally. You know, I have noticed that most shadow comforts, like whatever, I mean, like are better when you kind of put them in their place rather than trying to fill up your schedule with them. For me, some shadow, you know, drinking can be done in moderation. For people who do cannabis, it's the exact same. Like when you pick times where you don't do those things, it makes you appreciate the careful spaces, thunder, where you do enjoy them even more. You know, video games, YouTube, social media, like they're all kind of colorful entertainment and stimulation in their right place, but they can also be this sort of goopy sludge all over your calendar. That's kind of the metaphor I was using, cleaning out the gunk. Like when you do social media, you have all these things that are just kind of like molasses you get trapped in because they're sweet and they're sticky and you get stuck in them and they prevent you from kind of moving on to these next other things. And so like for me, every time I'd switch tasks or take a break, it was like, oh, I'm over to Reddit, or oh, I'm over to some video, or oh, let me pop over and like play 30 minutes of a video game, which turned into an hour, which turned into an hour and a half. And all of a sudden I'd beaten, you know, I've been grinding my head against Dark Souls for 2 hours and I hadn't done any work. And I was like, where is this coming from? I'm not enjoying this. Especially because then you get to the end of the day and you've already been doing all your gunky stuff. And it's like, what am I going to do? Just do it more? You know? And so when you slowly start to clean out that gunk and compress it into like the places where it really makes sense, like when it's kind of your mental bowl of ice cream at the end of the day, you know, it actually like it leaves you with a lot more room. Like the first day I did this, I was like, Jesus, where did all this time come from? And the answer was I've been gunking it up all the time. You know, and so now I've got time like where I'm spending during the day. I'm like, oh wow, I've got so much time. I don't even know what to do with it sometimes. You know, so I'm like, oh cool, I'll start reading a book again, or you know, sit down and just do nothing and just look out at nature, or you know, go jump in the pool, go for a walk, play with my cat, like make a really nice lunch. These are all things that like you have time to do a lot of the time if you kind of trim down the fat. And so that, you know, or you clean out the gunk. So, and these, like those things that you do, like reading a book or going and swimming, and you know, like they're not like something that's going to give you that immediate dopamine hit, but they do give you that reward at the end of the day of like, wow, this was a day full of interesting things. And to my experience, it also like, it just keeps you feeling energized and rejuvenated and like, wow, I'm really living right now, rather than kind of, ooh, I'm just gunking through my day. So that's kind of what I've noticed in just the first 4 or 5 weeks as I've been taking on this. So I wanted to share those thoughts as I've also been working on as I was been working on getting focused on which things I do want in my day. But yeah, so I figured I'd share. Anyway, I invite you guys to join me in looking at where you can find gunk in your calendar, like gunk and goop and grime, and just kind of scrape that layer off. See if you can't just find 1 or 2 things where it's like, you know, I could push this to the end of the day when the sun's down and I'm done with everything, and I really wouldn't miss it. You know, it's like there's something that like, you know, maybe I get stuck, you know, some little mental molasses I get stuck in that's like, ooh, this, you know, I sure love coming over to check Instagram, but it's like, oh, all of a sudden I check it every time I change tasks, and before I know it, I didn't realize I've spent 4 hours on Instagram during the day. Anyway, all of that to say, I hope you guys find this little tidbit, this little nugget, this little globule of podcast enjoyable, and I hope that the thunder wasn't too loud, and I don't know. Have a good day, guys. Talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Seventh Valkyrie Podcast, which is brought to you entirely by fan support. To help keep the series ad-free, get early access and bonus features, browse gear and apparel, join the community, or watch the series come to life in living color, you can check out the links in the description.